Yeah. Good morning, Westside. Welcome to worship with the community of Westside Unitarian Universalist Church, where compassion leads us to work for justice and equality. It is my hope that our gathering here today will feed your heart, mind, and spirit and give you a sense of connection with this community. My name is Shari Woodbury, and I'm the minister here at Westside. I miss being gathered in person with all of you in the sanctuary, and I am so grateful that we can stay connected through this form of virtual worship. Thank you for your patience as we adapt to all the tech changes and including our hiccup with the link this morning. I appreciate you all working through that so we can be together. It means that our volunteers and our staff can do this from home and keep everyone safer in these times. So you're here in my home studio, and I want to thank our tech helpers today, the dedicated Spencer Maxwell, the wisecracking and talented Donald Kennard, and our own Energizer Bunny, Nikki Kennedy, behind the scenes. And of course, you've already seen the amazing hands of our pianist, Yuki Kumamoto, tickling the ivories. Whether you come as a spiritual seeker, an atheist, or a theist, whether you find inspiration in the great books or the great outdoors or great conversations, all are welcome in our inclusive community. If you're so moved and you haven't already, you can try out the chat feature here on Zoom by typing in some words of welcome to both members and to visitors who may be joining us this morning. And on behalf of our entire Westside community, I say welcome. The order of service today, we're kind of switching from a Google Doc to a PDF link you can grab from the chat and download there. If you're here with us visually, the technology has changed a little bit, so we can't do hot links anymore. So if you can grab that download, that'll be the best way to access it. This includes lyrics for singing along with the hymns, as well as other pieces of the service. And Spencer will be pasting those into the chat too, for those who can see the chat. Please do continue to watch your inbox, the church website, and our Facebook page for updates on how church groups are meeting and how you can plug in and participate in the life of this community. And if you don't already have your beverage or your blankie or your fidget toys or whatever you might want during our time together, I invite you to go ahead and get yourself settled in the way that is comfortable for you. Now let us worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude. If you want to try out a feature that I think is fairly new, there's a little reactions bar at the bottom for those who have a screen, and you can give Yuki a little applause there. Yay, Yuki. And if you have your own chalice where you are, I invite you to gather it and your matches or your lighter now, and we can light our chalices together. And first, I share with you these words of chalice lighting for this Easter Sunday. As we light our chalices, let us remember that our separate fires kindle the one flame of faith and community that unites us all. Like this flame, the dawn of Easter is harbinger of new life and new joy. In its light, sorrow and regret, danger and fear give way to the open space of new beginnings and the glow of rekindled community. For just as the fire wheels and wine cups, primrose and paintbrush unfurl their colors, and the warblers and hummingbirds signal the coming of spring, so may we hear the call of the future, winging its way to us on gentle winds. May we witness in this flickering flame the good news that love rises again. The flaming chalice is a symbol of both the heritage of our past and the light of hope within this church today. And each time I've been lighting a chalice at home now, I can't help but think of the beautiful carved chalice in Westside Sanctuary, which survived a fire in a previous location and is a reminder of the resilience and the vision of this community. Will you sing with me our chalice song? It's number 362, Rise Up, O Flame, and words are there in the chat. Rise up, O flame, thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. And from your home, I invite you to sit tall or stand and join me in reciting the affirmation, which is just popped into the chat there if you don't already have it deep in your heart and mind. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Our opening hymn is number 108, My Life Flows On an Endless Song. And by the time I get it queued up, the words will also appear there in the chat. And our time for All Ages this morning, as you may have guessed, will be presented by Caroline Nixon.
Good morning, Westside. In children's religious education, we learn about our Judeo-Christian roots. We learn about why Christians celebrate Easter or Resurrection Sunday, and we learn about why Jews celebrate Passover. But for some UUs, Easter is time to dye eggs or hide them and send children in search of them. It's a time to wonder about the Easter bunny. It's about dressing up, wearing white shoes, giving candy, taking pictures, eating peeps, and feasting around the family table. Things are a little different this year. Here's a special story for UUs of all ages, and it's written by Heather Lynn Hansen just for Easter morning. Once upon a time, a girl named Ramona and a boy named Roberto had a wonderful dog. They named the dog Feliz because he was so happy when they came home from school every day. He bounded toward them, barking and tail wagging madly. His sandy brown coat was sort of wavy around the shoulders, but straight and smooth around his haunches. Under his chin, he had a ruff of fur that Ramona liked to tangle her fingers in. He had dark, silky ears that Roberto liked to stroke. Feliz was always getting burrs caught in his hair, so the children took turns every day brushing his coat. With their dog, Ramona and Roberto would roam their neighborhood. Sometimes Feliz would run ahead, chasing a squirrel. When they went to the pond, Feliz would swim with them. Sometimes they would sit on a tree stump and the dog would sit quietly beside them. His tongue hung out and his tail wagged as he rested. Once in a while, if something sad happened at school, the children would tell Feliz all about it. He would look at them with his brown eyes, and it seemed like he understood. When they walked to the supermarket, sometimes bigger kids would try to tease Ramona and Roberto, but Feliz growled at them, and the bigger kids left the children alone. They learned to walk and not be afraid when they walked with Feliz. They loved Feliz very much, and Feliz loved them. Then one day, something terrible happened. Feliz got very, very sick. He must have eaten something very bad for him because he never got well and he died. The children cried and cried. And then they found a place in the garden to bury him, and they wrapped up his body in a pretty scarf and covered him up with dirt and planted a pretty bush by the grave. And they thought all about the fun they had with Feliz and how much they missed him. A few days later, Ramona was walking home from school and a dog came bounding toward her, tail wagging. It reminded her a lot of Feliz. It's like Feliz is part of that dog too, she told her brother. Roberto saw a squirrel running like crazy across the schoolyard. It brought back memories of how Feliz chased squirrels. Do you suppose that squirrel saw Feliz's ghost? He said, and the children laughed. Ramona and Roberto had to walk through the neighborhood where the mean kids lived. The children remembered how confident they used to feel with Feliz at their heels. They decided to pretend that Feliz was walking beside them, and they walked bravely past the other kids. The bigger kids said some things, but Roberto and Ramona kept on going, thinking Feliz would be with them if he could. That night, they asked their dad, "Do you think dogs turn into ghosts or angels or something when they die?" "I don't know," said Dad. "You miss Feliz a lot, don't you?" "Yes, I miss brushing his coat. And I miss his silky ears and his waggly tail. Sometimes it seems like he's here somewhere, but just out of sight. Sometimes I see another dog and I think it's Feliz," said Ramona. Mother said, "You still imagine him sometimes, don't you? How he was so friendly and playful, all the ways he was special to you. You can see him even when he isn't here." The children nodded. You can feel happy for the wonderful dog he was, even though you are sad too. His love lives on in your memory. Maybe that's what it means to live forever. Remembering the friends you love and who love you, and letting that love fill you with happiness and live inside you. When you remember Feliz, part of him lives again in you. "I like that," said Ramona and Roberto, and they smiled. There we go. So, for most UUs, Easter is a day to mark the start of spring and celebrate the rejuvenation of nature and the greening of the grass. The word Easter is related to the word east, which naturally points us to the sunrise, to new days and new beginnings. So as a lot of things have changed recently, and we search for our new routine, and especially if the pandemic has taken loved ones from us, either temporarily or permanently, let us remember to keep them in our hearts as often as we need to, as long as we need to bring a smile to our face. Happy Easter, y'all.
Thank you, Caroline. Appreciate that message. We will share our joys and concerns now. I received one via email, and if you would like to post one in the comments right now to be shared, I'll share it aloud with all today as well. Just remember that because we are streaming this and recording it, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel, that any joys and concerns shared here could be heard by others later. So I have one joy submitted by email. This comes from Barbara Crotty, who shares the joy that her son, Sean Crotty, known to many of those who have attended his Geography of Beer Talks, just received his letter of tenured professorship from TCU. "It's been a long journey," Barbara says, "and we are delighted." Well, congratulations, Sean and Crotty family. How exciting. What other joys and concerns do y'all have to share? Here's one from Karen Moore. It's her 65th birthday today. "I'm officially on Medicare now," she says. Happy birthday, Karen. Any other joys? Cindy says she was able to help a person who was homeless right now get food and shelter for this week. Oh, thank you, Cindy. That's so good to hear. And Avanel writes, "We are moving." And I'm going to talk more about that a little bit in the reflection. Lots of happy birthdays to Karen. Any other joys or concerns you want to put in the chat? Or if you're joining us by phone right now and you want to text me, you can do it that way too. Concern from the Sellers family. Martin injured his arm yesterday and has a referral to the orthopedic surgeon next week. And our sister Shelley lost her boyfriend Stephen this week to suspected COVID-19. He was 49. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sellers. How very sad. And Martin, I'm sorry about your arm. I hope that can get taken care of very soon and that you're feeling okay. Any other joys and concerns you want to lift up to our gathered community here? Sharing draws our community closer together, and I want you all to know that I and our pastoral care team are available as always to support you one-on-one with the ups and downs that life brings. When you want to connect with us, you can reach out directly to anyone on the team, including you can contact me by email or text or phone. You can drop an email to pastoralcare@westsideux.org or call the church and you'll be connected, and the voicemails at the church are being monitored daily. We also do have an InReach fund that is administered by the pastoral care team that can help members and friends through a financial rough patch. We are here for you. Our centering song this morning is Comfort Me. We'll do verses 1, 2, and 4. That's number 1002 for anyone who has the teal hymnal at home. And the words will appear here shortly in the Google, the chat, or you can find them in that document if you downloaded it. Comfort me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. On the wings of this music, I invite you to join me in a time of centering. Each week here at Westside, we open our hearts to those in our community who know both joys and challenges, and to all suffering beings. I will offer a brief pastoral introduction before we move into a time for silent introspection. And this beginning time will include a chance to call into our circle of care anyone that you'd like to lift up in this community. You may wish to position yourself comfortably and let your eyes rest. Spirit of life, on this Easter morning, we draw into our circle of care all those who are present on this call in one form or another, and all of our friends in our extended Westside family who aren't able to join us right now, but are still definitely a part of this community and loved by us. And we bring into our circle of celebration the wonderful joys we've heard of tenure and birthdays and a move. And we also bring into our circle of care the sorrow that we heard of an injury to one of our littlest friends and the loss of someone in the extended family of one of our members. Our hearts go out to that family and all who are grieving. And I invite you, if you would like to call anyone else into our circle of care, just simply by name. It could be first and last name or first name or just relationship to you. Feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat and I will name them as well. Others we wish to call into our circle of care. I know many of us are feeling grateful every day for those who work in healthcare and those who are protecting the public and even keeping the grocery stores open. And we call into our circle of care Sophia and her parents, and Julio Mena, and Shelley's mother, Roxanne. And we call into our circle of care all those in our community and our friends and family networks who are feeling vulnerable and who may be at risk with this pandemic, with conviction and commitment to continue doing our part to prevent the spread of the virus. And we call into our circle of care Grant and Thea. And we call into our circle of care Liz's mom, Jancy Campbell. She's doing well, but she is in the vulnerable group, being that she is 85 years old. Yes, all of our beloved elders and those with compromised immune systems and sensitive respiratory systems, we call you into our circle of care. And from the woods, Karn M. and Nancy P. and her daughter Dristel on the front. And many of us have friends or family who are working in hospitals and on the streets and other jobs that are essential, and we're so grateful. And we call into our circle of care from Ginger, Darla, who lost her mother yesterday. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ginger, for Darla. And we call into our circle as well all of those whose names may be coming to your hearts, even if you choose not to put them in the chat or if you are joining us by phone. We care for them too. And the teachers missing their students' faces, yes. I know many of the parents here, I'm sure, join me in being grateful and lifting up a shout of praise for the teachers and educators who are working hard to continue serving our families. And also all of the families in need in our community, and we know there are so many more now. Thank you all for continuing to build a caring community and support one another through these times. Let us enter now into a period of silence, which I'll mark at the beginning and the end by the sound of the bell. And during the quiet, you may wish to meditate or pray, or you may simply want to accept whatever spirit of comfort and connection you can find in this moment. Our meditation of shared compassion. Wonderful to see folks continue to join us throughout the service, so welcome all. Westside has a long tradition of reaching out to the wider community in generosity. Because the needs of our church community and the communities around us have shifted during the pandemic, and because we've seen a drop in loose plate offerings since we shifted to meeting online, today we introduced some changes to our offering. You'll find guidance in the order of service and maybe paste it into the chat as well. And we'll include all of this information in the afterward email blast that will go out on Monday. Please know that payments on your pledge to support the church itself are needed just as much as ever. While we are not meeting in our building, obviously, we are still paying on our mortgage, and our staff are finding new ways to continue our ministry. Thank you for being as faithful in your pledge as your circumstances allow. You can give to your pledge online or by mail. We also welcome donations to the church's InReach Fund. We recently dispersed our first pandemic-related check from this fund to a member facing financial difficulty. It's likely that more requests will come in, and we would like to be able to respond generously to any of our members and friends in this time of need. You can donate to the InReach Fund on our website or by mail as well. Lastly, if you are in a position to provide financial support to community organizations helping to meet people's needs during this challenging time, we encourage you to make gifts directly to those organizations. This will avoid incurring an extra layer of fees from online giving, which would happen if we pooled our gifts together first. One organization that Westside has long supported, that we encourage our members to continue to support if you can, and now directly, is Samaritan House. And you can give to Samaritan House online or by mail. Again, all of these links and contacts appear in the order of service. They're in the chat, and they'll be included in the afterward e-blast on Monday. So to give you some time to make a gift right now as you are able, we will hear a gift of music from Yuki. Thank you for putting into practice here at Westside the spiritual virtue of generosity. Our giving helps ensure that our mission continues and connects us to the wider web of community. I see a question in the chat. I think in March we supported South Central Alliance of Churches, Jana. The reflection today is titled, Upending Expectations. Jesus of Nazareth upended the status quo. That's why the agents of empire came after him. like the healthcare workers who go in and mask up despite all the risks because they are committed to the common good. Jesus continued preaching his radical message of love and transgressing every social boundary. It cost him his life. By killing Jesus, the Roman officials in turn upended the expectations of his followers and friends. Even though at their Last Supper he had told them what to expect, the reality that he was gone, that the one who had walked beside them and welcomed all and embodied love at work in the world, brought great grief to those whose lives had been touched by the gentle yet penetrating prophet. As my colleague Sarah Lawal writes, drawing the connection between Good Friday and our present pandemic, it is not so different from the time we're in now. We know what is coming. We're hearing about it, reading about it. We feel it even though, for some of us, it doesn't quite feel real. Even though we don't quite understand, we feel powerless. This thing is coming. It is already here. This thing that will take away life and has by the thousands. And all we can do is shelter in place. Many of us have been down this road with sick and dying loved ones, playing that waiting game, knowing the end is near and uncertain what to do. Lawal goes on, looming grief brings so much uncertainty and so many questions. What will my life be after this moment? Will I survive this? What is left for me now? Like Jesus' disciples and the people of his day, we are anticipating grief. And rather than ignore it, deny it, fight it, even betray it, we might, as Jesus imagined with the Last Supper, welcome it. We might explore what grief has to teach us. It's an unexpected invitation to consider what grief has to teach us, to welcome grief with an open heart. I want to practice a little bit of that with you today. In addition to living through a pandemic, many of you know that this church community is at the front end of facing a much more ordinary grief, the departure of a minister. As Westside members and friends learned in a special email blast this past week, I have accepted an invitation to candidate with another congregation. If all goes smoothly during candidating week, which it almost always does, in about 3 months, I will begin serving the new church in another part of the country. If you had not yet heard this news, you can find a new transitions page on Westside's website with the details shared with the congregation. It includes a letter from me, a letter from Board President Carol Kappa, and answers to frequently answered questions. And gosh, every time I tell anybody at Westside about this, my heart is once again pounding because I love you all so much. My reasons for pursuing this new opportunity have nothing to do with this wonderful congregation and everything to do with wanting to be closer to family and to get back to Four Seasons. Nonetheless, this is a change which may upend expectations that you all held about how long we would be together. And I recognize that in this strange time that we are living in, when many of our lives and the people have already been turned upside down by the pandemic and by public health measures. So this may add yet more uncertainty and more grief in the life of this church. Perhaps Good Friday can offer some insight for this grief. Now, a note of caution, I think it's always a bit dangerous for a spiritual leader to compare themselves to one of the figures that inspired their tradition. Although for Unitarian Universalists, as a people who tend to relate to someone like Jesus less as a savior or a uniquely divine figure, and more as teacher and caring companion, perhaps it is not quite as fraught a comparison. I will let you sort out what rings true to you. Consider this further reflection from Sarah Lawal. She writes, in Jesus' time, to most of the people, and especially to his disciples, his looming death felt incomprehensible, if not impossible. Jesus told his disciples at the Last Supper, he told them one of them would betray him, that he would be killed, and he told them he would rise. But no one really understood. They all processed it differently. Some ignored it, some denied it, one betrayed him. But Jesus comforted them. He tried to remind them he would always be with them in spirit. And more important than that was their work, the teaching for a movement that was just beginning to change hearts and minds. And Jesus assured them the community would hold them, and the love at the heart of their faith would save them. And to whatever extent you personally have considered me your minister, a teacher or a friend or a spiritual companion, this may be true for you too. It may be hard to take in the separation that looms. Everyone will process it differently. There's no one right emotion and no wrong one. At any point over the coming weeks, you might feel sad, numb, angry, or disappointed. You might also feel resolved, understanding, or grateful. For any who did not particularly connect with me, perhaps you might feel indifference or relief. Even though I'm telling you what's coming, when it actually happens that I leave here and cease to be your minister, it may surprise you. Whatever you feel now, whatever you feel in the weeks before my departure and the months after, I want to tell you that I will always love this congregation. I will always love you. Although I have had more forewarning than you, I am going through a process of grief too. As my first congregation, Westside will always be uniquely special to me. I love this congregation, and I will miss you. I will miss you as a community, and I will miss the many wonderful and unique individuals that it has been my privilege to know, to work with, and to minister to. I also want you to hear, although I think you already know it, that the work that we have done together of caring for this community, of nurturing its people in learning and growth, of bringing to life our values of welcoming all and embodying a universal love in the world, that work will go on through this community. No one person, no minister owns that work. The whole community of Westside shepherds that work. You shepherd that work. And if you feel grief, when you feel grief about this ending with me, this religious community will hold you. And the love at the heart of our Unitarian Universalist faith can save you. I believe it is important that we end well together. We have more time than Jesus and his community did. We have several months, as it will be late June or sometime in July when I wrap up with Westside. This means there will be plenty of time for processing feelings, plenty of time for celebrating the ministry that we have done together, plenty of time for talking with each other in whatever ways we can, and for saying goodbye. Ending well is important because endings contain beginnings. You will have a new beginning, first with an interim minister and later with a new settled minister. And the way we end our time together will set the stage for you to form healthy bonds and healthy partnerships with future ministers. And I see a question from a newcomer about who will be the new minister. The board of directors has formed a task force to search for an interim minister, and that person will start in August. I am especially mindful of setting Westside up for as smooth a transition as I can because of the large and unusual gap that Westside lived through between its last settled minister, Russell Elvin, and the interim minister that followed him. You had about 8 months without a minister then. And I want you to know, and Linda Ice, I want you to hear this, it's different this time because I am transitioning within the planned annual cycle of transitions for Unitarian Universalist congregations. So there will be no such great gap between me and the next person for lay leadership to bridge. I do want to set you up well to go forward with your next minister. And meanwhile, I will continue to be your minister and to do all the things a minister does for the next several months, including working with the staff and the ministry teams of this church to ensure continuity in Westside's mission and programs. Until my departure, I will continue to serve you as faithfully as I can. Still, this week, this Sunday, marks the beginning of an ending between me and Westside. While the ministry will continue, even as ministers come and go, each relationship is unique. So we will have a period of letting go and grief. During the musical interlude, I invite you to rest in these questions, not only with Good Friday in mind and the pandemic, but also with the knowledge of this new phase that you and I are in together. Sarah Lawal again writes, "What if, in all the confusion, fear, uncertainty, sadness, what if after we've eaten the bread and drank the wine, the symbols of sustenance, nourishment, and comfort, what if we sit with our questions, with the questions inspired by a love larger than life itself, by a ministry of grace and hope? What if in the darkness we get still and let the questions come? How will our hearts answer?" Part 2, Easter. After Good Friday comes Easter. After the grief and loss, the transformation and revitalization of community. I want to share with you words of another colleague embracing Easter in the context of our present pandemic. "Here's the thing," Kendall Gibbons writes. "The essence of Easter is transformation. It is never about things going back to the way they were before. The new life of spring is new. It's not last year's leaves. Those are over and done. Even the empty tomb of the Gospels is not a sign that Jesus and his entourage are going to resume their former life. In fact, that way of things is finished. It is only a radically new understanding of how to be a community together that can save them from dissolution and despair." Gibbons points out, this isn't the first time the world has fallen apart. It just seems more devastating because it is ours. She observes, this Easter, as never before in many of our lifetimes, we are invited to seek the strength to let go of an old way of life and discover what else might be possible. The sane and real thing to do right now, as Aisha Ahmad says, is to be grief-stricken and afraid, knowing that the world will never be the same. Easter morning was like that for Jesus' disciples. It would take years and decades for them to work out what the reality of the empty tomb would actually mean for them personally, for the world, for the future. And yet, she goes on, it is in the confusion and anguish of that disappearance, that inexplicably empty tomb, that the first whisper begins on the lips of the broken-hearted women trembling at their own audacity. Risen? What if the story isn't actually over? What if the message still lives within us, is made real by who we are together? What if the vision he taught us is still as true as it ever was? What if he is still among us, instructing, encouraging, calling us to rise again? What if we too, on this Easter morning of coronavirus danger and death, are called to rise again and make a new world? What if, Gibbons dares us, there is no way back to being what was before, only a path forward to a different way of being, perhaps a society more nearly what it and we ought to be? I think she's right. In the middle of the crisis of coronavirus and the upending of our social order, as most of us have known it all our lives, is the opportunity of transformation. Some kind of transformation has already begun, with the air clearing of pollution, neighbors helping neighbors, people finding new ways to work and learn, people realizing all the stuff we can do without, people finding new ways to connect. And connecting in some of the old ways too, like by phone and letter, because the crisis reminds us that we are all interconnected beings and that our relationships are the most precious of our treasures. I want to suggest to you that this church has also begun to transform. We have buddies calling and checking on people, small groups meeting online and welcoming in old friends from afar. Worship made accessible to anyone with decent internet without even leaving their homes, wherever they might live. We have visitors finding Westside who might never have found it before because of social media and because of our members and friends who are sharing the special community and programs we offer with other people that you know might need it and value it. If I may be so bold, I also believe that for this church, because of the work that we have done together these last 4 years, there is no way back to what was before, only a path forward. Because of the past 4 years of shared ministry, caring for one another and trying new things in worship, offering new programs and building relationships with partner organizations in the community, marching in the streets, and welcoming new people into the church, and pursuing your vision to grow in membership and impact, Westside will never be the same. The Easter of transformation is not a new reality for this church. It is an ongoing development. And you are positioned for that, no matter who serves as your minister. What happens next is up to every person here now, and every person who joins you in the coming months and years. But there is no going backward. I share with you again words of Kendall Gibbons, writing for this time of pandemic, and words that, for me at least, speak also to this moment of transition for Westside. This is what the forces of empire never understand, Gibbons writes. From the days of Rome to the days of Trump, every one of us matters. What we choose to do, how we share and cooperate and protect each other, how we offer our skill and knowledge to the common good, this is what will turn back the tide and save us all. This is how we rebuild the world. This is how we rise again. She goes on, the world as we knew it is finished. To feel sad and lost and anxious is the sane response. Be not ashamed to mourn and to lament. That is how Easter always begins. Danger and recklessness and cruelty are real and cannot be denied. But hear the whisper. God only knows where it comes from, somewhere deep and always surprising. Rise again. Let your trembling, mystified lips form the words before you even understand what they might mean. Rise again. Throw your ascent and your treasure and your labor to the call when it comes. Rise again. That is all that faith means, has ever meant. That human willingness to rebuild the shattered world and knowing what we know now, do better this time. Spring is the sign and the promise. Rise again. The rest is up to us. Friends, it is both Good Friday and Easter, this time we are living in. It is both Good Friday and Easter for Westside as you face a ministerial transition. We don't know exactly what will happen next, but this community will draw together, as it has always done before. It will draw together in new ways. In time, new leadership will arise, and out of the open possibility of this new beginning, you will pursue your mission and vision in this church and in the world in wonderful ways. In this time of upended expectations, may love rise again. May the flame of this community burn bright with the Easter light of liberating love. So may it be. Amen. Y'all ready to sing with me? I invite you to stand or sit tall, whatever feels right for you there where you are, and join in singing our closing hymn. It's number 270, O Day of Light and Gladness, an Easter song. And the words are in the order of service document, and here they come in the chat. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I'm looking at the chat and seeing the appreciative words for everyone who put the service together and for the message of the service. I love you all so much, and all will be well. And I want to leave you with these words of Wayne B. Arneson that we've been using for the last month or so. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Will you join me in the congregational closing? There it is in the chat. Let us go in peace, believe in peace, and create peace in our lives and in the world. May it be so. And I'm going to let Nikki tell us, oh, and here she has. Okay, we'll put up a slide to be in contact with us, and then we will all socialize together. I think she's going to do our spotlight and give you all a chance to see each other and even release the sound here at the end so you can say hello. We're working on how to be able to do breakout rooms, and if we haven't quite got that figured out this morning, hopefully by next week we can do that so we can have kind of a virtual coffee hour with different groups around tables to talk and chat. All right, here comes our connection slide. If that looks strange on your computer as it does on mine,